Welcome to it. It's the third edition of the Nedbank Football and Finance Summit. Go Andile Ngube, and I'm excited to be hosting this next conversation. If it's anything like riding a bike, I should do okay. But if not, then hey, we all know, Dallas Makaya, I've got someone to blame. Now, we all love football. It's the beautiful game, the players, their craftsmanship, their teams and their excellence, the adrenaline and the uncertainty as to what's about to unfold in the next 90 minutes. Now, as the late Cebo Manyapelum Makdala would say, therefore. Football has no therefore. The one thing that football does have, from a lot of us sitting at home watching from the comforts of our couch, is money. So yona nto soyikhuluma leyo imali nebhola lenyawo angikhulumi ngedwa ke muthi ngale you'll see that I've got a panel that's distinguished, that is fitting for the conversation we're about to have, from the administrative part of the PSL, from the banking sector, as well, of course, as a legend who still plays the game as well. There's our panelists. I'll be joining them in quite a few. Most often, it doesn't have we steer away from it. What a better way to have the money conversation than through the lens of the beautiful game and our brilliant players and panelists as well. Some who've made money and lost it and not had enough for some as well, who have made their money, others, and worked. In this current time of the COVID-19 pandemic, we've had no access to our beloved football game. As we all have seen it and known it, the game that offers us, the fans, unity and togetherness. And in our homes, a quiet meditative escapism. They don't call us the 12th player for no reason. But as the title sponsors of the Nedbank Cup, with football's return imminent, Nedbank is launching a call to action to all. From the Nedbank, the bank that started and continues to see money differently, comes the movement #PlayYourPart, while bringing football back to our screens, letting it play its part in lifting our spirits. We're asking you, Lapekaya, Mthandi webhola, to play your part by watching responsibly, endlini, ekhaya, in your home, protecting your friends, family, and loved ones, and all South Africans against COVID-19. Play your part. While bringing football back to our screens, letting it play its part in lifting our spirits, we're asking you, the fans, to play your part by watching responsibly in your home, protecting your friends, family, and loved ones, and all of South Africa against COVID-19. These are unprecedented times. The pandemic has wreaked havoc globally and here at home. In this uncharted territory, where very little is certain other than the exciting return of the Nedbank Cup, we ask ourselves, where to from here? Where to from here? Siapi, Kasugapa. Joining me, as I said a little bit earlier, I am honored to be sitting amongst you. Lukolo September, Toby Bardenos, as well as Renele Lutsulunyane. Sure. We're in a pandemic and there's so much that people are looking at and saddened by, but also there is a little bright light that we're celebrating. It's 10 years since the FIFA World Cup.
Sure. Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me, Andile. Yes, it's been 10 years after the World Cup. It has been a journey for me as an individual, and then it was a great experience for me being part of that group that represented South Africa in the biggest showpiece of football in the country.
And I mean, we were not starved of football back then. It was football back to back every day. And that's when, Toby, I don't know if you know this, but that's when Lukolo September shone the brightest during that 2010 time. What a time.
I have a blur of that memory. I can't even remember the first game, and I was there. But this was a period whereby the world saw that the Africans can do the job. But more importantly, it was a period whereby the Africans reaffirmed to themselves that they can do the job. And I think the strength of this Premier Soccer League, the reason why we are amongst the top 10 leagues in the world, commercially one of the strongest leagues, is because of what we demonstrated not only in 2010, but in the build-up to 2010. A lot of people often say it was a miracle. I get a little bit offended by that. It was not a miracle.
Yeah.
It was as a result of hard work by Africans to put the structures in place to be able to showcase to the world that you can have confidence in us. You don't have to lower the standards when you come back to Africa.
Yeah.
And I think that's what also our partners, Nedbank, and our commercial partners demand when they come to the Premier Soccer League. We don't say to them, but it's football, don't demand the same that you demand to golf. We say, we are here to, as a brand, to be a vehicle for your product that is credible, that is accepted by everyone. So these are all the lessons and the legacies of the 2010 World Cup, the demonstration of people, of the community, not only of football, but also Africans in general, that we have a product here that is able to make everybody proud.
Indeed, proud we were. And as together as we were then, Tobian, as we fought together, forged together, supported together, we need to do the same thing now, but under different circumstances. COVID-19, for the Nedbank Cup, for the millions that watch out for it, I can imagine that it has not been the same for you guys.
Yeah, Ndile, I mean, just to reflect on, the whole 2010 FIFA World Cup journey, there was a buzz in the air and excitement that, it was really a special time to be in this country. I think, we all look back at those times, and I mean, I was personally very fortunate to have attended quite a number of games. I think 14 in total, including the opening and the final, but not as many as Luxter. I know, he was working very hard.
I was just a worker.
Yeah, he was playing and he didn't see that many.
He played.
Of course. But, it was just, I think during that time, it's obviously when corporates were falling over one another, trying to get involved in the game of football. And that whole lead up to the 2010 FIFA World Cup is when Nedbank's journey with football in South Africa started, when, we took on the naming sponsorship rights of the Nedbank Cup in 2008. And it's hard to believe, here we are 13 years later, celebrating, the 13th edition of the Nedbank Cup. So, it's really a proud moment for us as a bank, to just showcase, our commitment and involvement in South Africa football and to build on that for generations to come.
How do we build on that now? Pandemic is upon us. There's restrictions as to what we can and can't do. The Nedbank Cup, the beloved Nedbank Cup, is coming back. But how is it coming back?
Well, I think there's a lot of uncertainty in the air at the moment, and we just have to, believe that, this will pass. And, if anything, I think this COVID-19, pandemic has been an acid test, in the sponsorship world, as far as relationships and partnerships are concerned. It's been a good shakeout for the industry, and with that, it's brought a lot of change. From a Nedbank point of view, once again, we remain committed to our partnership with the Premier Soccer League. We've got an existing agreement in place until 2022. So, we're really keen to get the show on the road, but at the same time, we have to be cautious and be cognizant of, putting public health and safety first and to act responsibly in every single thing that we do.
Nicolo, this has been weighing heavily on the PSL's shoulders, of course, because of, the potential million jobs that could have been lost, millions that could have been lost, and the families that could have been affected. Bringing football back in the pandemic.
It's not just a difficult period for football. It's a difficult period for the global community. People are losing their lives. As we speak right now, people are fighting to stay alive. People are going to bed without anything in their stomachs to eat. There is a lot of gloom in our society. The chairman always says football is the happiness index. We need that 90 minutes to lose ourselves, to visit a world of fantasy, excitement, sadness and happiness. You watch a game for 90 minutes and the emotions go on like this. We need something, football, as much as, of course, it's a therapy, but also it's an aspirational thing. It's an industry that is not just responsible for the happiness index, but it's responsible for transforming families' lives. Yaya and others, some of them are from very poor families. Some of them are from the villages, from the townships and everything else. But this is not just a product that makes people want to dream to be on television, but to transform and change the lives of their people. This industry is responsible for so many jobs in this country, so many livelihoods. Of course, we have to save lives, but lives and livelihoods are not kids from different parents. They are siblings from the same mother. We need to treat these things as important. So one sibling is not more important than the other. And I think as African people, we must be proud of what the football industry has been able to do and guard it jealously to ensure that it's sustainable. And of course, if we have commercial partners like Nedbank who share the values, who understand the impact in the community of this industry from a happiness index point of view, from an economic point of view, and from the mood as well.
Yeah. Before we go to an ad break, you are the players that he speaks about.
Yeah.
How has this affected you guys? I can imagine the last 15 years of your life, you're training twice a day, every day, you're with your fellow teammates, and it's been different. You got to know your kids.
Sure. I've never spent this time with my family. And a positive from this situation, it has given me that opportunity to spend time with my family and get to know them better than before. The negative side, obviously, it's I'm as you said, I'm used to be training with the team twice a day, 7 times a week or whatever, 7 days a week. But now I spend plus 90 days training alone, doing the same thing over and over again for those plus 90 days. It's difficult. And then 2 weeks ago, we started training in groups. It's not the same as well. And
Look at it this way. This has been preparation for your retirement. We're going to take a very quick ad break. When we come back on the other side, the finance business, the business of money and finance and football. We get into that very juicy topic. And I want to know from Yeyelo Tsulunyane, he played for Jomo Cosmos before anybody else. I'm on Patala from the back of the car. Kakesh, when we come back.
Money, money. Money, money.
Welcome back, Sanamugela Nonke. It is the Nedbank Football and Finance Summit. Ukhumbula ukuthi ibhola nobuhle balo liphethwe mina nawe. It is an individually and globally beautiful sport that lies in the impact that it's had to the many that it grows across. Individually, the game makes us dream. Globally, nothing unites us like football. But in this unity, in the midst of a pandemic, teamwork is everything. We need to take care of each other, support each other, and play a part responsibly. Ilangena konage, a hashtag, play your part.
Today, everyone is being forced to see the world differently. We now know that a football game or golf tournament may not change the world. We realize that running a marathon won't save the human race. Defeating a pandemic will. And when we do defeat it, we'll be here, ready to run, ride, compete, and create. So while we're all being asked to change our habits, we'll never stop doing what we love. Stay safe. Play your part. Nedbank. See money differently.
Stay safe and play your part, Toby. You guys put that together, and it's a beautiful summation of sport, finance within the COVID.
I mean, as we know, COVID-19 has had a severe impact, on the, not just the economy, but in particular on the sports and events industry by and large, and like he has mentioned, he's had to train at home for months now, and more recently in smaller groups. So, what we set out to do is just really to depict, all of our sponsorship properties in summary, and highlight some of the, our athletes individually and how they go about their training regimes, like I said, staying safe and adhering to government and local guidelines and legislation. And, it's just to create a bit of hope, amongst people to know that, there's just, as we say, fuss bait, it will get through this. And, that we can get through this together, and I think from a Nedbank Cup point of view, we had up until the quarterfinals, mid-March. It's now almost been 4 months, since the last fixture. So, I think everyone is sort of chomping at the bit to get going again. But once again, understanding that, there's been all sorts of health and safety guidelines that we've had to adhere to. And, like I said earlier on, we're keen to get that started.
Indeed, Toby, and we hope that it does so and does so safely. But njengoba sengishilo masiqala ukuthi-ke la sikhona sizokhuluma ngezemali ezomnotho webhola. Mangiqale kuwena yeye. Getting into football, you're a young man. I mean, when you start, you're 18, 19, barely a teenager. Then you start in the lower ranks in your 20s. Finance when you start, that first contract when you sign it, the money. Talk me through that journey.
Sure. By the way, when I started my professional career, I wasn't that young. I was 24 years old. And it was a challenging time for me. As earlier that was mentioned, I'm not from a rich family, right? And then I saw that football can be a vehicle for me to improve my life and my family's lives. And when I got the opportunity, signed for Jomo Cosmos, it was not much, but it helped to put things for me and my family in order. And then it kept me to push more so that I can strive to get a better contract, maybe the second one. And then it happened, fast forward, when I went to Chiefs. And yeah.
I mean, with the growth that you've had personally and financially and, career-wise, when you think back now to those first couple of years playing, those checks that you were getting then, would you do anything differently now? I mean, you were 24, 25 back then when you were getting that money, which coming from nothing was a lot. Would you do anything differently with that now? For somebody who's watching, who's signing their first contract, they're just as excited. Would you advise differently?
Definitely, Andile. I would at least try and, yes, with those responsibilities that I had, I would make it a point that I save a bit of that, a certain percentage of that money that I was getting, as little as it was. But I would try and put some money aside. And then 10 years later, I think that money would have or would make a difference today. So that's one of the things that I would change for myself.
Nicolo, and this is where financial education would play a huge role in young players. And I'm going to go to Toby because I know through the Kiona fund that they had, there was a lot of that. And that's why we're here even, because through this finance and summit on football is where finance should be channeled. As the PSL, what is the responsibility on you guys for financial education on players and clubs?
I think as a society, money is not something we talk about, more especially in the African community. I know that we don't discuss money enough, So here's Yeye, is from Soweto, and I'm not saying you, Yeye, in particular. And he gets his paycheck, and let's say in his 25, 26, now he earns about 60, 70 grand. Now, no one from his family has ever earned that at all. And now the reality is that if you don't prepare people for that, when they retire, they will have nothing, and everyone is going to say, but what football? What about football? The reality of it is that I do know that a lot of member clubs, they take time to call financial experts and so forth. But I think it's something we need to talk more about it, because the more we talk about it, the more we bring up and others to have platforms like this, whereby they can pass the ball backwards, in playing their part, in saying, I wish I did that. Because someone is bound to listen to that. We need to have that conversation, not only in formal sessions at clubs whereby I can play with my phone, but also to watch television. I'm sitting at home and I can hear somebody share their own experience. The league, I do know, spends a lot of time in trying to create these platforms for players, because it's in our interest that these players become community role models. Not in driving the latest BMW or Mercedes-Benz or whatever it is, but in buying properties for themselves, in building at home, in showing other kids that you can use this thing, which is football and sport, not only to aspire to be, as I said earlier on, to be on television, but to change your life materially, not from a short-term point of view only, but also from a long-term point of view.
And Toby, this is something that you guys at Nedbank, and hence we're here now, but it didn't just start here. It's been a journey of financial literacy and education to players and to the industry of football for a while now.
Yeah, I mean, to Lux's point, we've done research to show that, money is just a taboo subject. People don't talk about money, and I think as far as our relationship with, the sponsorship is concerned, with the PSL, it's to stop pivoting and start evolving. Yes, we've gone through, the start of the Nedbank Cup, where it was all about awareness in the entry-level banking market, and to the introduction of the Kiona team, where, we went on, grassroots football development, and we still do. But it's evolved again, once again to say, well, how can we use our sponsorship to talk about money and, to educate, not just football players, but consumers by and large through our consumer financial education program, in terms of, upskilling them with the necessary skills and tools that they would need to make wise money decisions, and our brand essence is centered around, money experts who do good. So it's only right that we spark these conversations, that people at home can benefit from it, learn from players such as Yeye and, the do's and the don'ts of what to do with your money whilst you're earning a good living during your playing careers.
Yeah, and I ask this from a personal point of view, because growing up in the township, whenever you'd see a fancy car drive by, and I'm going back to your fancy car, Lukolo, I would know that there's a certain soccer player that's come to visit. We must all gather around there. How much pressure is there amongst yourselves that leads to financial irresponsibility, you think?
There's too much pressure that we create ourselves. For example, Andile, when I move from Chiefs to Supersport, that's what happens in football, right? You obviously build a relationship with your teammates, and you have those players that they are within your circle. But those players must fit your standard. Standard as in the car you're driving, the clothes that you are wearing. And when you move from that team to the next team, it becomes the same thing. The people that you become friends with there, they are the same type of people that fits your standard. And you do that subconsciously. It's not something that you are aware of. But in our circle, that what happens. So that when we decide to go to the car, the Shisanyama, with our convoys, I'm driving my BMW, my friend is driving GTI, whoever Benz, so that we are sort of in the same level or same standard of or whatever that we have. So we're putting ourselves under unnecessary pressure, and then, we end up taking wrong financial decisions.
24 years old, you start playing, up until you get to the Chiefs, the Supersport, playing in the World Cup. When in that journey do you get your first sit-down and financial education? Somebody who says, this is how much you earn, this is what you must put away, this is how much you actually have. When does that happen?
Sure. Honestly, there's no one that came to me and gave me lessons and taught me about how to use my money. I learned from seeing other players before me. Fortunately, I played with big players at Chiefs, and they retired after. And how they obviously left the team. A few years later, how they were when they were superstars and they had money, they drove these cars, they stayed in these houses. But a few years later, their life were different. So for me, I took that as a lesson that it has happened even before them. And I want to be part of those players that break the chain of when we retire, 2-3 years later, we will be struggling. And then, yeah, it has been my journey to try and try and break that chain of footballers that, and the perception as well that footballers can't take off their money, footballers don't listen, footballers are this and this. So those wrong perceptions, I'm trying to learn and then change those things with my other fellow footballers.
And Toby, you don't have to wait for somebody to come to you. Help is available.
Exactly. I mean, once again, the Nedbank Cup is a platform ultimately, for us to demonstrate our brand essence, but at the same time to offer our financial services, to the broader community. And, I think there's just, you almost expect a player to be equipped and someone to sit you down and to teach you about finances. And, I think that's why, from a Nedbank point of view, we'd of course like to offer all of our resources to the players themselves and working with the clubs and working a lot closer with the PSL to say, maybe there's something there that we need to be a little bit more proactive, not just having the conversations, but actually doing something about it so that we don't hear of these nightmare stories with players who've retired and within a few years, they've squandered all their money and they're right back to where they started. I mean, no one wants to see that, and we hear that, unfortunately, far too often.
I need to say goodbye to Toby as well as Lukola. But Lukola, before I do let you go, there's a pandemic, there's a financial pressure on the PSL and the PSL players as well. There's a resumption of football, all of this during a time when we want to see our beloved Nedbank Cup.
I think for me, this period, as difficult as it has been, it has made me to appreciate leadership and quality of leadership. And I was thinking of the analogy the other day that it's like most probably climbing Mount Everest and oxygen. You don't get to appreciate oxygen at base camp. You appreciate oxygen when you are close to Mount Everest, to the top of Mount Everest, close to the death zone. Now, the quality of our leadership has made me to appreciate the oxygen that, Dr. Koza, the executive committee, have been able to make us to breathe more while we are close to the pinnacle of Mount Everest. And the quality of the leadership and the guidance in these difficult times, because football is business and many businesses are closing. And the country and the world is in a state of panic. If you've got the right people, the right shepherds around you when you're climbing Mount Everest, even when you panic, you are able to look at your shepherd and the body language says, be calm, I got this. And that's what we have.
Lukola September, thank you so much, two of you as well. I'm going to ask Yeye to stay a little bit as we ask more people to come and join us and we speak about the one thing about the imali nebhole ekhatywayo. Incredible insights and an incredible challenging time from my panel here. I really do appreciate it. Remember, do join the conversation and share your thoughts with us on the Nedbank Sports social media pages by using the hashtag #PlayYourPart. Hashtag Football Finance Summit. Now, while we've been asked to stay home, stay safe, and social distance, the Nedbank Money app helps you to bank anytime, anywhere. To find out more, visit www.nedbank.co.za. Remember to stay safe and play your part.
Money, money. Money, money.
Former Kaizer Chiefs player now living back elokishini. Former international star who played his football overseas and for Bafana Bafana without a cent. These are some of the headlines that we're used to seeing in South Africa. And today, here at this financial summit into football, we take a look at the things that make football what it is, the players and finances. Joining me on the panel, as we've said goodbye to two, we welcome two more. A legend of the game. He's a former player, he's a businessman and an author. Simba Marumo joins me. Renelo Lutsulunyana still stays with us, and we invite up Nedbank's Group Executive for Marketing and Corporate Affairs, Kensani Nobanda, also comes on. Welcome, Kensi.
Thank you.
My man, we're talking about Arthur, we're talking about businessmen. Yeah, I just know you to kick a ball. But I want to hear all about that. But before that, Kensani, I was watching you a little bit earlier when you were listening to Yele Tsulanyane saying that in his entire career, and your career and, you know, the more structured, not so entertainment-driven careers are different, that he went through his entire career up until this day with no one ever saying, hey, this is how much you pay to the VAT, your tax man. Nobody gave him financial education.
I find that incredibly scary, but unfortunately pretty normal, to be honest. And I think a lot of people, not just in football, would tell you exactly the same thing. If you look at what we've tried to do, even through Kiona Team Search, was to really get people to understand that the footballing part is just the one part of it, but there's a whole finance part of it that you need to look at from a long-term perspective. And it's actually why, if you think about at the beginning of the year before COVID, when we launched Nedbank Cup, we did a campaign with Benny McCarthy around setting money goals. It's not just going to happen that you're going to understand what you want to do, you know, where your money is going to come from, or what you want to achieve with your money. You actually have to set goals for yourself and articulate what those are so that you can work towards them. I'm really hoping that this conversation, which is what as a bank we're all about, is getting people to talk about money, starts to get us to have less situations as what Renelo referred to, because I think that's really scary, but unfortunately, like I said, it's the norm.
And years after retirement, here's Simba, because you were able to see money differently from an early age on, because you didn't start your career in South Africa. What are the differences? I mean, you were at Inter Milan, you were playing in Bulgaria. What are some of the fundamental differences between what you found here in South Africa with money and finance and players and what you had learned early on in Europe?
The fundamental differences from what I could see and compare is that the system in Europe allows players to be able to save because there are those retirement plans for the players that are set in place. And also, you find things like the union there plays a really big role. I remember when Phil got hurt, the late, in Italy, he had a huge payout from Bari, from the league actually, for that, through the insurance. So over and above that, you find that players are given, these kinds of financial summits, and thanks to Nedbank for organizing this, but they are very frequent. Newcomers, there are platforms for them to be taught, to be ushered into this new life. Because when you look at the socio-economic issues in South Africa, you have a lot of players, especially players who play football, they come from a hand-to-mouth setup. So their relationship with money is a hand to mouth. Whether he earns 5 rand, 5,000 rand, 5 million rand, he still has hand to mouth. A guy can actually be broke, earning hundreds of thousands rands a month and ask you for 200 rands for petrol. Now you can see this guy's not managing his money properly because I'm earning so little and I'm a youngster coming into this and my senior player is asking me for 200. I'm sure you can attest to this. Older players will come and ask you for 2 klipa. And this guy is earning 10 times more than me as a youngster coming into the game. So you've got a lot more training in terms of money to help players to have a healthy relationship with money.
On a serious note though, you were one of the wiser ones that went and sought help, and you are now at a stage in your career where you are winding down and the retirement is closer than it was when you were at Chiefs. I know it's a conversation you and I always have. It's closer than it was, a couple of years ago. It's more important now more than ever to start the money talk. What are you doing in your life?
It's about to change now. But yeah, we, like I mentioned, as you know, few years back with Shaba, we decided to venture into a business, a lounge, Kokasi, and then again, that was part of trying to break that chain, footballers being poor or footballers struggling post their playing days. And then, it has been a challenge. It's not easy. We are big names in the industry of football, but in business, we still new, we're still kids, and there's sort of a trial and test and fail sequence more, but we are getting there now. Like any other business, we are facing this huge pandemic, but it's part of life, and then it's part of our learning process, and definitely we will make it on the other side of this pandemic, and we will be better people, better business men, and surely will be better role models to the young ones.
And Nedbank Cup, Kenzie, always finds a way every season that it comes, every year since you've been a part of this from 2008, to make sure that with the goals that we see, with the big finals that we see, there's some sort of literacy and education that goes into it as well. So every year there's something innovative that comes in that's exciting.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at what our brand stands for, right, which is to use our financial expertise to do good, we have a firm belief that if we don't drive the proper and the important money conversations, then we will have failed as a brand, actually, because we do need people to start looking at money differently. And you would have seen it through COVID-19. So if you look at what we did as a bank through this crisis, I mean, initially what we said to our clients was that you needed to get in touch with us to be able to have a discussion with us around how we could help you through this crisis. And in that, Andile, I have to say I'm incredibly proud of the fact that, you know, we reduced interest rate fees on credit cards. We literally re-looked at people's, whether it was a vehicle loan or a home loan, to help people be able to, whether it was reducing their payment or postponing their payment for a period. And, you know, we worked with the South African government in terms of small businesses to set up the Small Business Fund. We've donated about 15 million rand towards testing sort of abilities, but also a lot of South Africans obviously through this time have had difficult times, and that has impacted their access to food and all of that. So we've worked with the Red Cross to feed families across South Africa. I mean, for us at the beginning of the pandemic, we were exceedingly clear that there were two important constituents as a bank. The first one was our employees. We needed to make sure that our employees were safe and they got through this crisis knowing that they've got their job secure. And then secondly, our clients. And I think everything that we've done is to say, how do we help our clients get through this? You know, I've heard people say that don't waste a good crisis, right? And it's a crisis, it's here. But, you know, as a brand, we had to step up and say, how do we make sure that we land the idea of managing your money better through this period?
We're going to take a very quick ad break on those wise words. When we come back, Yeyela Tsulunyana has promised to tell us, is it true? Does the E2 earn 2 million rands a month? If you've just joined us, we're speaking about the Financial Summit. It's football and finance all rolled into one. It's going on all sorts of social media. It's a Football Finance Summit. Use that hashtag and also play your part.
Money, money. Money, money.
Mangabe angena endlini usuphuthele besihlebelana kancane endlebeni sikhuluma ngengakhulunywa makhona abantu sikhuluma ngezemali sakamukele ekhaya lapho ungakhona. It is the Football and Finance Summit brought to you by Nedbank. To learn more, of course, you've been joined in conversation abantu ababuya kulona ibhange, abantu ababuya ebholeni futhi nababuya ku PSL. Mangabe ufuna ingxoxo ukuyibona ukuthi ihamba kanjani nokuthi kuphi, it's hashtag Football Finance Summit, and of course play your part. I'm hashtag esamba ngawo. Ngingakabi kude ke ngibuyele ngizokhuluma nabanini bethu lana. Simba, I said at the beginning when we opened ukuthi you're an author. From la usuke khona Italy, Bulgaria, ufunde kuningi. Uyakudlulisa manje.
Oh yeah, you know, Hans, my belief in basically about life is that we need to serve. Even as a footballer, you are serving. As a businessman, you are serving the community. As anything, it's a service that you give to people. So I felt that one thing that can serve our players best is to impart whatever wisdom we've accumulated as footballers. Because when you look at football from the 60s, we've made the same mistakes that the previous generations have made. The 70s made the same mistakes that the 60s generation made. 80s, 70s repeated the same mistakes that the 70s guys made. And I felt that, you know what, the only way to change this is to actually write a book. So I wrote a book called Champion Millionaire, and the idea behind Champion Millionaire is that as you are a champion, as a player, there are certain things that you do that makes you a champion on the field. And because finance is also like a game, you attack, you defend. And the best coaches will tell you, defense wins you leagues. Attack, the best attacks will win you the game, but the people that actually make you win the league is the defense. So attack is like making money. And a lot of people think by making money, that's the end of the game. No, but how you manage the money, how you manage the game, how you save is your defense.
So defense is keeping it.
It's keeping.
Yeah.
And like we say, you manage the game. You've scored one goal. Now you manage the game. There's 5 minutes to go. Manage the game. Stay tight. Make sure that your defensive lines are watertight. Then you manage the game and win the game. Same way, if you've made 100,000 rands, how you manage it and make sure your defense is tight of that 100,000 rands, that's the way to ensure that you keep you can win the financial game.
You have a factory in company manje eqasha abantu abangale kwekhulu, over 100 employees that you've got. But before you got there, which is where you are today, tell me very briefly the story of what you did with your first big check to set you on this financial path.
What I did, I realized that football is like almost like, you know, when the tsunami came and water went back and there were all these shells and beautiful little shells on the beach. And people came there to pick up those shells, and the water came and swept everyone away. I realized football is like that. That guys, it's you know, the water is gone, and there's all these nice things that you see. So I realized the danger that, guys, this thing there's a problem here. I'm only going to play 5 years and 10 years if I'm lucky. If I'm really lucky, it's 15 years. And even the longest period in football, you retire when your life starts. You have 2, 3 kids, you have a wife, you have all these responsibilities.
30,
and your life, your financial life actually ends at that point. So how do I maintain my life beyond this? So I put all my money in. I bought a land and developed it. I built a sizably big house, and I put all my money there, and to make sure that beyond the game, I'm able to then continue getting some sort of salary. Because I've
rental income from the home that you
rental income that I'll be, exactly. And I would like to, advise the players, guys, start now. You just have some assets. You can't depend on football money because it's going to end very soon. And just in closing, talking about this whole thing of service to people and so on, I think the biggest thing is for players to just remain humble and always remember that you are there to serve and serve people. And in that, I've also been doing a lot of giving back, especially now during the COVID-19, through the factory that you mentioned, that I employ over 100 people. I have been donating masks to the elderly and most people who can't do things for themselves and who are financially in a bit of distress, doing everything that we can to be able to help them. So, and through the Champions Foundation, that we ensuring that we can be able to be a positive influence in our communities.
Well done to you, Simba. But well-being of a people is not just financial, Mr. Nobanda. As you said, you did financial well-being of your people at the bank, but then you started looking outwards to say, how do we help our customers? It's not just that. We need social well-being. We need other things in and around us, which is where Nedbank Cup comes in. Because we need to distress, we need to sit down and look and watch at our favorite and say, oh, football is back, there they are. Where to from here?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I just have to say I'm incredibly inspired by both Yeye and Simba. I think it's so good to see footballers who think the way they do. And I hope you guys really step up as role models for the younger guys. And honestly, I'm extending my hand as a bank. If you want to work with us in terms of what we can do to really get footballers to have good conversations about money and setting money goals, I'm telling you now, so, you know.
Yeah,
But I think, Andile, I think just going forward for us as a brand, it's important to continue to have these conversations. But maybe let me start off by saying we've launched something called the Together.Nedbank crowdfunding platform. Because, funny, South Africans are like that, right? As difficult as things are for us, we still want to give. We still want to do, you know, good for society. So we are allowing people to be able to donate money that's going to go towards a lot of like the nurses who've really stepped up in crisis like this, a lot of the families who are struggling. So I think that's the first part for us. I mean, we are going to come out of this crisis. And I think as a bank, we're trying to think about what's the best way to help people come out of the crisis. One, obviously, the fact that Nedbank Cup is coming back is fantastic. Football is back. But we do want people to understand that they have to play their part in ensuring the safety of the citizens and the safety of ourselves. But yeah, and then in addition to that, you know, there's a couple of sort of new products that we've got in play. Like, for example, people must check out our Evo platform, where on the platform itself, you actually can get groceries, you can get someone to deliver gas at your house. So again, in the context of playing your part, you know, you don't really have to be walking to grocery stores and all of that. But yeah, we will continue, I think, as a brand to drive the right discussions around money.
Thank you very much, guys. The insight keeps coming. Thank you so much to Kensani Simba and Renee for their time, their wisdom, their passion, and their guidance. Mzansi, in order to change our money habits and make better decisions, we need to learn about our relationship nemali. Take the Nedbank Money Quiz now on www.nedbankmoneysecret.co.za. Stay safe and play your part.
Money, money. Money, money.
Welcome back, Sajabela Sathokoza buhle nathi sonke leso sikhathi re so kwale re go utlwa la mafello go tloga mo ye le tsolonyane Kensani le Simba ha ke thoma kwena.
Yeah, thanks to Nedbank for this opportunity to learn and teach my fellow colleagues about the financial implications, obviously, for us post our playing careers. So it has been a great pleasure to be here, and I hope more of such things happen.
I look forward to what's going to happen from here forth. All the best.
Thank you.
All the best. I'll come get lo spotong da, get lo chisanya manya. Oh, I mean at the spot. At the spot. Kensani, it's been great hosting us here, talking finance. What is your last on this?
I think, if everyone can take away that during a crisis, it's always a good time to reflect on what's important and what you want to achieve. And through that, I hope people can develop better money habits. Yeah. And as a brand, we really encourage people to do that. So, and thank you to the guys for joining me.
A man who's gotten it almost right. Life is still succeeding. The 100 become 200, become 300 workers.
Exactly.
What would you like to say in closing?
Now, in closing, I just want to say to the guys, do not eat the seed. The money you make in football is a seed. Plant it and eat the fruits. The fruits is what you make out of that.
Leave it right there. I couldn't have closed it better. I think right there is just perfect to close it. Thank you so much once again, guys. And we hope to see many more of these. Now, siyabulile ukuthi sizwe ngawe sifuna ukuzwa futhi ngawe ukuthi yini ongasitshela kuyona kakhulukazi kulesikhathi lesikhona se-pandemic. Financial education is critical and important. Withi sisonke hayi abadlali bodwa. Money well managed makes a real difference in people's lives. Andile Ncube, siyabonga. Khumbula ukuthi ke kuyo yonke indawo yakuyona #play your part.